Imagine this. Imagine you are standing at the edge of your own life, looking at it the way a stranger would. Not the version you show the world, not the version you rehearse in your head, but the raw, unfiltered truth, quiet, exposed, undeniable. And what you see unsettles you. You notice patterns you didn't consciously choose, reactions that feel automatic, almost scripted, fears that don't match the person you believed yourself to be. It's as if something has been running beneath the surface all along, quietly steering you. And a question rises, soft at first, then impossible to ignore. Why do some people see life so clearly, while most never do? Why do certain people move through chaos with an eerie calm? Why do they seem immune to illusions that trap almost everyone else? Status, approval, certainty, hope itself. Why do they understand pain, desire, power, and human nature in a way that feels almost uncomfortable to be around? Here is the part no one prepares you for. Almost everyone who truly sees through life has lived somewhere you were taught to avoid. They lived in the abyss. Not the romantic version, not poetic suffering, but the place where your explanations stop working, where the stories you tell yourself collapse, where identity begins to loosen its grip. Think about how you were taught to deal with discomfort. Fix it quickly. Distract yourself. Stay productive. Stay positive. Replace silence with noise. Replace depth with efficiency. Replace confusion with certainty. But what if clarity doesn't come from avoiding darkness? What if clarity is forged inside it? Ask yourself honestly, why do your most vivid moments of awareness arrive during crisis? Why does suffering strip away illusion faster than success ever could? Why do breakdowns reveal truths motivation never touches? You already know the answer, even if you don't want to admit it. The moments that changed you most were not the happy ones. They were the moments when something fell apart, when the ground beneath your identity gave way, when the version of you that once worked stopped working. That is the abyss. Not just pain, not just failure, but the moment your psychological defenses stop protecting you and begin dissolving. And here is the paradox no one likes to talk about. The abyss doesn't destroy everyone. It destroys illusions. Some people fall into it and never return. They numb themselves, shrink their lives, lower their expectations, become quieter, safer, smaller. But others come back changed. They don't chase what everyone else chases. They don't fear what everyone else fears. They don't believe what everyone else believes. And that makes them unsettling, not because they are superior, but because they are no longer hypnotized. So here is the real question you should be asking yourself. Why do you resist the very experiences that might wake you up? Why do you rush to fix discomfort instead of listening to it? Why do you label pain as failure instead of information? Why do you assume darkness is meaningless instead of asking what it reveals? You were taught that life is something to optimize, but no one taught you that life is something to see through. And seeing through life doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation. Confrontation with your shadow, with your self-deception, with the uncomfortable truth that much of what you want isn't really yours. What if your anxiety isn't the enemy? What if your emptiness isn't a flaw? What if your sense of being lost is not a mistake, but the beginning of clarity? Because when everything familiar collapses, something strange happens. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop asking who you should be. And you begin asking a far more dangerous question. What is actually real? That question does not arise in comfort. It arises when the masks fall away. This is why those who see through life rarely sound naive, rarely sound impressed by trends, status, or noise. They have seen what happens when meaning collapses. They have walked through confusion without guarantees. They have stared long enough into the void for it to stare back and blink first. And once that happens, you cannot unsee what you've seen. Now we have to go deeper, because this is not poetry or metaphor. This is mechanism. Human beings are not designed to see reality clearly by default. They are designed to survive, and survival depends on illusion. From a psychological perspective, your personality is not pure truth. It is a defense structure, a negotiation, a response to fear, desire, and social pressure. Very early in life, you learned who you were allowed to be, what earned approval, what avoided rejection, what kept you safe. Slowly, almost invisibly, you built a self around that. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear to function in the world. Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. Most people never move beyond it. They confuse adaptation for identity. They confuse survival for living. And as long as life keeps working, so long as you are rewarded, distracted, or comfortably numb, there is no reason to question the mask. This is why comfort is dangerous. It stabilizes illusion. The abyss removes reinforcement. When you lose meaning, status, certainty, or emotional ground, the persona stops working. The strategies that once protected you no longer produce results. You try harder, you think more, you optimize, and then, nothing. That's when panic sets in. Because the ego, the part of you that manages control and narrative, believes it is you. So when it fractures, it feels like annihilation. You are not just losing happiness, you are losing coherence. You don't know who you are anymore. Time stretches, motivation collapses, the future feels unreal. From the outside, it looks like dysfunction. From the inside, it feels like falling apart. But this breakdown follows a pattern. Philosophers saw it long before psychology named it. Schopenhauer understood that blind striving creates suffering. Nietzsche saw that when inherited values collapse, the individual must either disintegrate or create. Creation, however, requires destruction first. The abyss is where borrowed meaning dies. What disappears there is not your intelligence, your awareness, or your capacity to love. What disappears are assumptions, who you're supposed to be, what success is supposed to look like, what guarantees happiness, what makes life worth it. These ideas do not survive sustained suffering. And this is where the shadow emerges, not as evil, but as truth. Everything you had to suppress to be accepted. Anger, envy, fear, depth, power, grief. The abyss forces confrontation because there is nowhere left to run. Distraction stops working. Positivity feels insulting. Motivation feels hollow. You are left alone with yourself. And that is when the most disturbing realization appears. You were never as unified as you thought. You were a collection of adaptations held together by reward and routine. The abyss exposes this fragmentation. And here, paths diverge. Some people rush to rebuild the same mask, just louder, busier, more numbed. They label the abyss a disorder and erase it as quickly as possible. Others stay, not because they enjoy suffering, but because something inside them senses truth. They stop asking, "How do I escape this?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" That single question changes everything. Pain becomes information. Confusion becomes data. Fear becomes a signal instead of a command. You begin to see how much of human behavior is driven by fear of abandonment, how ambition compensates for emptiness, how morality often masks conformity, how confidence is frequently performance. You see it in others, and more disturbingly, you see it in yourself. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is why those who have lived in the abyss speak differently. They don't cling to certainty. They don't chase reassurance. They don't panic when meaning dissolves. They have already survived the collapse of their internal structures. But the abyss does not automatically produce wisdom. It produces pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Resist it, and you break. Numb it, and you stagnate. Stay conscious, and something reorganizes. That reorganization is not gentle. Old motivations die. Old goals lose meaning. Old relationships no longer fit. This is why people who emerge from the abyss often feel alienated. They are not better, just less hypnotized. And this does not only shape individuals, it shapes societies. When a culture systematically avoids existential confrontation, medicating discomfort, distracting restlessness, pathologizing depth, it produces people who are functional, efficient, anxious, and hollow. On the surface, everything works. Underneath, depth erodes. Conversation loses nuance. Complexity becomes threatening. Discomfort is labeled harm. Silence becomes intolerable. When people cannot face emptiness within, they project it outward. They cling to identity, ideology, outrage, and control. They outsource meaning to careers, relationships, systems, and symbols that were never meant to carry that weight. And when those structures fail, panic follows. Not chaos, shallowness. Burnout is not just exhaustion. Anxiety is not just stress. Depression is often the result of meaning avoidance, not chemical imbalance alone. People who never confront the abyss live lives governed by inertia. They choose what is approved, not what is true. Years pass, and one day they realize they lived someone else's life, not because they were forced, but because they never stopped to see. The abyss interrupts this autopilot. It strips away borrowed meaning and asks the most honest question there is. What remains when nothing makes sense anymore? Most people never ask it. That is why they remain governable by fear, desire, trends, and promises of relief without understanding. But rebellion begins when you stop running. Not loud rebellion, not ideological rebellion, internal rebellion. The refusal to lie to yourself. You do not escape the abyss by overpowering it or distracting yourself. You move through it by staying present without flinching. When you stop resisting discomfort, your nervous system recalibrates. Fear loses authority. Thoughts lose tyranny. Silence stops feeling like death. You begin to observe your mind instead of identifying with it. This is not passive. It is the deepest form of agency. You see how anxiety demands certainty, how desire demands repetition, how identity demands reinforcement. And once you see the loop clearly, you stop mistaking it for truth. You realize you do not have to believe every thought, chase every urge, defend every identity. This is freedom, not loud, but unshakable. History is full of people who reach this point not through comfort, but through pressure. Marcus Aurelius ruled amid death. Viktor Frankl found meaning inside a camp. Jung descended into his own psychological chaos to map the psyche. They did not escape the abyss. They used it as a forge. Real transformation does not rebuild identity quickly. It lets the old self die without immediate replacement. This feels like standing on nothing. No label, no direction, just awareness. Terrifying, only because you were taught that without a story you do not exist. That is the lie the abyss dissolves. You exist before the story. And when you stop clinging to explanation, something stabilizes. Not happiness, presence. You become capable of holding contradiction without panic, loss without collapse, joy without attachment, meaning without obsession. This is what it means to see through life, not to transcend it, not to dominate it, but to stop mistaking its surface for its essence. You realize the abyss was never there to break you. It was there to uncover you. Life does not owe you reassurance. It owes you awareness. Once you stop demanding protection from reality, you meet it directly. Suffering becomes a signal. Meaning becomes discovered through engagement. Identity becomes flexible. Nothing needs to be avoided to be understood. The abyss removes what cannot survive truth, illusions, false selves, borrowed desires. What remains is grounded, quiet, real. You don't wake up enlightened. You wake up available. Available to reality as it is, without guarantees, without performance. You stop asking life to promise meaning. You stop asking pain to justify itself. And in that silence you act, not from compulsion, but from clarity. The abyss was never the enemy. It was the threshold. And if something inside you feels still right now, not inspired, not excited, but grounded, then you already know. You've been near it before, and this time, instead of turning away, you may finally understand what it has been trying to show you all along.